Can you read this text? Look closely. Can you make out any words? I'm guessing not, because these aren't exactly words at all. In fact, they're wordless. This is called Asemic writing, a wordless open semantic form of writing that does not attempt to communicate any message or verbal context other than its own nature as writing. It's a hybrid form of art that fuses text and image into a unity. The word asemic means without the smallest unit of meaning, and since there is no meaning, the readers can interpret it in whatever way they like. The nature of the open semantic work allows for meaning to occur across linguistic understanding, regardless of the reader's natural language. As a result, it may contain zero meaning, infinite meanings, or meaning that can evolve over time. When leaving the work for the interpretation of the reader, it invites the reader as a co-creator of the work. Asemic writing exists as a conception or a shadow that reflects writing. It leaves the reader in a state of hovering between looking and reading. Some of the things that influence Asemic writings are illegible, invented, or primal scripts like cave paintings, children drawings, and doodles. While the writing may seem to imitate pre-literate society, an expression that existed before writing, Asemic writing is considered as a type of post-literate writing that uses all forms of creativity for inspiration. A society where writing and reading are no longer necessary, when written words are replaced with recorded sounds, pictures, and moving images. This fundamental transformation changes how they think and organize their thoughts, similar to the shift from pre-literate to literate societies, as new media reshape our understanding and expression. So, what is the purpose of Asemic writing? Well, Asemic writing is used to stimulate creative ideas, to communicate non-verbally, for privacy, and just for general self-expression. Satu Kaikkonen, a contemporary Asemic artist from Finland, said that Asemic writers are global storytellers, and the writing represents a kind of universal language that was lodged deep within our unconscious minds. Many of our initial attempts to create written language look very similar and were quite Asemic. So Asemic art can serve as a sort of common language, though an abstract and post-literate one that we can use to understand one another regardless of background or nationality. Semantic language, on the other hand, all too often divides and unequally empowers people, while Asemic text can put people on the same literacy level and identity on equal footing. Asemic writing can manifest in the form of abstract calligraphy or strange hieroglyphs that look alien-like, futuristic, and otherworldly. One of them is Luigi Serafini's Codex Seraphinianus, an illustrated encyclopedia of an imaginary world with an imaginary language. The book is full of flora, fauna, machines, human practices, and other things that don't exist in our world. It's a surreal parody of the things in the real world, like bleeding fruit, a plant that grows into the shape of a chair, and many others. The texts written in the books were also alien and indecipherable. The book was meticulously written and beautifully illustrated, but everything in the book is meaningless, devoid of any linguistic content. Serafini wanted to create a feeling of illiteracy that encourages imagination like children seeing a book. They can't read it, but they know it must make sense and imagine what its meaning might be. Just like the Codex, it looks like it contains meaningful information, but it's completely meaningless. The Codex highly resembles another mysterious work called the Voynich Manuscript, a 15th century illustrated codex that, just like Serafini's Codex, contains fictitious illustrations of plants, astronomy, recipes, and other stuff, also written in an unrecognizable language. While it isn't clear whether the manuscript is meaningless or not, it remains undecipherable until now, and some considered it as Asemic. Another peculiar example is Helene Smith, who claimed to be able to communicate with the Martians and write out such communications in the Martian language, though she would later translate it into French. Theodore Flournoy, a psychologist, described it as a form of sleepwalking with glossolalia, a phenomenon when one speaks in an unknown language. He believed that her state of automatic writing was a mere romance of the subliminal imagination, acquired from forgotten sources of books she read as a child. He called it cryptomnesia, when a forgotten memory returns and the subject thinks of it as an original creation. Smith was called the muse of automatic writing, and some surrealists believed that automatism involves suppressing conscious control of the creative process, and that allows the material from the unconscious mind to spontaneously arise. Due to that, some surrealists saw automatic writing as revelatory. Scientists and skeptics, however, try to explain automatic writing in the same way as how the Ouija boards work, and that is in terms of the ideomotor effect, a process where a thought or mental image leads to a reflexive automatic response from the body without you telling it to do so. So Smith might have produced her Asemic writing in this state of automatic writing. Some people think it can shed some light on our history. For example, Matt Barrows believed that Asemic writing can hint at the origins of writing. He used Willem Flusser's concept of the gesture of writing. Flusser believes that primitive writing systems and pre-literate forms of proto-writing were basically just gestures. David Armstrong and Sherman Wilcox also showed that spoken language originated from manual gestures, and therefore, so did proto-writing. We are creatures of gestures. Even non-human primates and human infants use similar gestures. What's more, human babies can use gestures before they can speak. So Asemic writing might just be gestures long forgotten when we tried to create written language. However, many Asemic writing resembles well-developed writing systems of real languages, either consciously or unconsciously, like kanji and Mayan. But they also resemble primitive writing systems like Rongorongo or Sumerian cuneiform. There is also evidence that writing originated from counting and numbers before alphabets were developed. Many systems used symbols prior to the development of written language, suggesting that there may be no universal form of proto-writing. The only proto-writing in this case is visual language. So it is debatable whether the gestures and expressions found in Asemic writing correlate with ancient or independent writing systems that illustrate the emergence of writing. Asemic writing is also similar to automatic writing in surrealism, especially when they want to depict a world of dreams or hidden psychological tensions. They want to suggest something beyond reality, to find beauty in the unexpected and the uncanny, the disregarded and the unconventional, all in the search for freedom. This aspiration towards liberation of artistic expression of the mind brought them to seek political freedom, with many artists turning to political activism. Similar to that, some view Asemic writing as a form of resistance against the managerial processes that standardize language, such as dictionaries, grammar rules, and other conventions taught in school. Today, much of the standardization has been handed over to algorithms, which police language through specific norms of rationality. One example is character limits, which manage language and push users to conform to templates and presets externally imposed by bureaucratic rationality. As language becomes a fundamental part of the economy, Frederick Kaplan coined the term linguistic capitalism, where our expressions are mediated by algorithms like autocorrect, autocomplete, or autocompose. This essentially reduces language to mere information as it becomes controlled and automated, losing its organic, expressive nature. So Asemic writing is seen as a rebellion against linguistic automation. It defies codification, sabotaging the system that seeks to regulate and control communication. So, by resisting the norms and technological rationality that shape modern language, Asemic writing is important for creativity and non-conformity in language. As the world is increasingly utilizing AI, Asemic writing may be the last stand for authentic human creativity, since machines struggle to replicate something without intent. However, So Kano and Takehiro Yamaguchi showed that algorithms can still mimic human writing, yet the uniqueness of human consciousness and gesture still remains distinctive between mechanical reproduction and human expression. When talking about works that have no words, it reminds me of wordless novels, which are books without words or text. The story is told solely using art, visual allegory, metaphor, images, and symbols to communicate meaning. The images must be read carefully as any text, as the artists are literally writing with pictures. In these works, the emotions, thoughts, and feelings of the characters are conveyed through facial expressions and body language. The readers must be able to observe, comprehend, and assess the order and sequences to create a narrative, although it is up to them to interpret the characters' actions, motivations, and feelings without text to affirm, essentially asking the readers to collaborate in the storytelling process. While some ambiguity may remain in the narrative, readers can create and explain hypotheses about the events in the book. Readers are not constrained in any way by language, since the novels don't rely on words to communicate meaning and are accessible to those proficient in any language or any level of reading. One of them is God's Man by Lynd, a novel about an artist who gave away his soul for a magic paintbrush. In the novel, symbolism and visual expressions were used to communicate meaning. For example, Ward uses a contrast of dark and light to emphasize the corruption of the city. Even during daylight, the buildings darkened the skies. The countryside, however, was bathed with natural light. The composition and facial expressions are also exaggerated to convey the emotions. For example, in this scene, the faces of other people holding the glasses are not depicted, showing the isolation the artist feels. Another example of a wordless novel is Arrival by Shaun Tan. It tells the story of an immigrant navigating a strange world, making it relatable to every immigrant, displaced person, and refugee who has traveled from their homeland to a foreign environment. The immigrant's experience of novelty and otherness is depicted through asemic writing, which creates a sense of alienation, particularly when one cannot understand the language, leading to feelings of isolation. Even the most basic features of everyday life can become strange, confusing, and confronting in a foreign place, especially when language serves as a major barrier. So the novel found a unique way to convey the isolation of the characters through the use of asemic writing. Another example similar to asemic writing is Zaum, a linguistic experiment in sound symbolism and language creation that has a lot of newly coined words that mean nothing. The creators Alexei Krochenik and Velimir Khlebnikov wanted to forego grammar and syntax rules to show the disorders of life by introducing those disorders into the language. Khlebnikov believed that Zaum could find the essential meaning of word roots in consonantal sounds, and that can help to create a universal language based on reason. In the world of fiction, asemic writing can have a profound effect, particularly when creating a sense of otherness or alienness, as seen in Arrival by Shaun Tan. In the film of the same name, a foreign alien language is portrayed. However, it is not asemic. Instead, it is a constructed language with real meaning. The alien species comes to share their language with humans, depicted as a palindrome with circular symbols that appear to have no clear beginning or endpoint, contrasting with human languages that illustrate the progression of time. This suggests that the aliens perceive the concept of time differently. Ultimately, when humans adopt language, it alters the reality of its speakers by transforming their experience of time. The film is heavily influenced by the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, and I actually made a video about it, so feel free to check it out if you're interested. When people try to find meaning in asemic writing, their efforts can seem ultimately futile. Yet, humans have an innate desire to find meaning, even in the most obscure forms. For instance, in graphology, people attempt to determine a person's personality based on their handwriting, despite its classification as pseudoscience. Some engage in literomancy, a form of fortune-telling based on written words or characters, which is equally nonsensical. Others look to numbers to derive meaning and predict future events through numerology, a belief in the mystical or divine significance of numbers. But these people are deceiving themselves, convinced that their pursuits hold meaning, even though they are entirely pointless. Asemic writing might seem strange at first, almost nonsensical. To some, it may even appear pointless. Why create something devoid of meaning? But when you step back and consider the bigger picture, isn't everything in a way meaningless? Our problems, our lives, and the things we hold dear, none of it carries inherent meaning on its own. Yet, that doesn't diminish its value. Meaning often emerges in fleeting moments or in the way we choose to see our lives. In that sense, the symbols and strokes of Asemic writing may lack predefined meaning, but the process of creating and interpreting them carries its own significance, and maybe that's where the true meaning lies. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy what I'm doing, consider supporting me on Patreon. I sometimes post my videos a bit early, so you might get early access to them. I'm also thinking about starting a singing channel because I like to sing, and it could be a nice distraction when my videos aren't performing as well as I'd like. Anyway, this video was fun to make. I initially thought it would be more ambitious than my last one, but it turned out to be just okay. Honestly, I think my last video was much more interesting. It didn't get many views though, which makes me a bit sad. But that's okay. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.